Let's talk the club. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk the color. Woo!
Hey there, good evening, everybody. It's Cutler here in the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube channel, the Let's Talk to Cutler virtual book club. It is another Tuesday. It's the 3rd of October, and here we are. The year is moving along. We're in a new month, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful to be able to share this time with you guys. And just in case someone stops by for the first time, just in case they catch the replay for the first time and they're wondering, what is that guy? What is his channel all about? What is he talking about? I want to let you know that I'm not trying to sell anything for starters. This is not an infomercial. I'm not trying to sell anything. We get together every Tuesday and Thursday for about 1,800 seconds. This is an opportunity for us to have conversations that I hope are inspirational, motivational, and sometimes challenging. They challenge us to show up a little bit better today than we did yesterday. They challenge us to try and show up better tomorrow than we did today. And all things considered, they challenge us to try to show up our best selves, even in the worst of situations. That's key for me today, trying to show up my best self, even in the worst of situations, because life has a way of just throwing curveballs. Life has a way of trying to catch you off guard. Life has a way of trying to sometimes knock the wind out of you. And sometimes life is just lifing. Life is just doing what it does, as if life is a person, right? But sometimes life just happens and we find ourselves in circumstances and situations. So we do take this time to have conversations about things that are real, things that are most likely to happen along this thing that we call life, things that are very probable. And we want to make sure that we talk about them so much until our response becomes second nature to a lot of these things. I often say that how I respond is what matters. It's not necessarily what comes my way. It's not necessarily the circumstance or the situation or the scenario. It's not necessarily the people, but it's really how I respond that matters. You are in control for the most part of the outcome of your life. You really are. You are in control of the outcome of your life, because think about it. Think about, no matter how long you've lived, the things that have come your way, whether things that have come your way, whether good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, most of them are a result, if not all of them, are a result of how you responded. We don't like the weight of that. We don't like the accountability of that. We don't sometimes like the responsibility of that, but we live with the circumstances of our responses. And I wish somebody would have told me a long time ago, be careful how you respond. For every response, there's an equal opposite reaction for every response that you make. And sometimes it's not necessarily the opposite. Sometimes it's very congruent with the response that you make. But think about it. How we respond matters. I won't get caught up on that, but if you're stopping by for the first time, that's what we talk about. We talk about trying to inspire ourselves and trying to inspire each other, trying to motivate each other, trying to encourage each other, and again, sometimes trying to challenge each other. We like the inspiration and motivation, but not always the challenges. I have another challenge for us today, just a conversation. I want to talk about how to make things less complicated. Sometimes we make things more difficult than they should be. We make things harder than they have to be. And I want to talk about why do we do that? And then I want to talk about how we can possibly stop doing that. But before I do that, I want to encourage people who are stopping by for the first time to go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. And once you subscribe, do me a favor, you all. Go ahead and click the notification bell. It lets you know whenever I've gone live, like I am now. It also lets you know whenever I've uploaded new content. Sometimes I upload new content. I haven't done it lately, but sometimes I upload new content even though I'm not in a live forum or in a live format. So subscribing and clicking the notification bell lets you know about that. And I want to shout out the LTTC VIPs this evening. Excuse me. Those are the people who jump over the chat sometimes before I do. Now, I see some of you are here, but I don't see you in the chat. Come on in the chat. Say hi so I can see who you are. I want to see my friends, for goodness sake. I want to know who you are. I want to know that you're there. I want to know that you're there. So stay high at least. I won't embarrass you. I won't say anything off centered, off colored, or anything. All right, but let me just shout out the top three people that I see on my end. Sometimes people say, no, 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 no. You didn't call me. But from my perspective, from my vantage point, the LTTC VIPs for the evening are Tracy Johnson, Marissa, and Annie Cutler. Special hello to all of you. And again, a good evening to the rest of you. And thank you all for joining as well. You really make my day. I read something today. Let me see if I can pull it up. I read something on social media. It was something that a friend of mine posted. I want to see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. And it says, these mountains that you are carrying, you are only supposed to climb. These mountains that you are carrying, you are only supposed to climb. And it made me think, how many times do we take the hard way of doing things? How many times do we just we find the more difficult way of doing things? How many of you all, let's talk about it. I do need to take a survey. I need to take a poll this evening. How many of you can say that there are times when you found yourself just taking the hard way of doing things? Why did I have to do that the hard way? Why did I have to take the hard route? Why couldn't there have been an easy route? Sometimes we just take the hard way of doing things. For example, we are carrying mountains that we were supposed to just climb. And in another vein, in another perspective, sometimes we're climbing mountains that we were supposed to speak to and tell to get out of our way. Why do we sometimes take the hard way? Sometimes we are comfortable with the hard way. So I'm asking again, put it in the comments. And again, no judgment. This is a no judgment zone. This is just purely for the sake of making sure and seeing if the conversation, or seeing how relevant the conversation is. Sometimes we decide to do things all on our own, all by ourselves, when there are resources and assistance available. How many of you can honestly admit that there are times when you've done things all by yourselves when you know you had access to someone or some resource that could have helped you, that could have made it easier? I'm just wondering. I'll wait for you to comment, because I need to put up both of my hands. How many of you have ever had the "I'll do it all by myself" mentality? Oh, I'd rather do it by myself rather than take time to show somebody else how to do it, because if I take time to show somebody else how to do it, I could have done it then. I could have had it done. Anybody ever thought or had that kind of way of thinking? Or someone says, "Hey, can you show me how to do this?" And instead of showing them how to do it, you do it and you push them aside. We sometimes take the hard way around. We take the long route when we really could take the shortcut, or the most direct route. So I want to talk about that. I see some of y'all jumping in saying yes. I am so guilty of it. Why do we do that? Why do we climb the mountain? Why do we carry the mountain that we were supposed to climb? And why do we climb the mountain that we were just supposed to speak to and say, "Get out of my way"? Why do we not exercise the authority and the right that we have sometimes to make life easier? I think there's some people who just major, they have degrees, maybe PhDs or master's, doctors, or bachelors, in making life difficult for whom? Themselves. I'm not even talking about how we make life difficult for other people. I'm just talking about for ourselves. And then we are exhausted, we're tired, we're fatigued, we're worn out, we're frustrated, we have anxiety because we made life difficult for ourselves. Sometimes if we would just take 30 minutes today to put a routine in place, it would only take us 15 minutes to do it from now on. But we say, "Oh no, I don't have the 30 minutes today. I don't have 30 minutes to do this today." So you're going to end up taking 30 minutes every day to do a routine that really could take 15 minutes if you just took 30 minutes today to put it in place. Let's say, for example, I've been in a vehicle with people who are going someplace. If they stop, turn on GPS, read a map. Who reads maps anymore, Cutler? Nobody reads maps anymore. But if they would just stop, turn on the GPS, or even look at the GPS before they get in the car, before they get in the truck, before they get in the vehicle. If they would stop and turn it on beforehand, they could probably save themselves 5 or 10 miles, which could equate to 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. But they didn't take the time to turn on the GPS. They just got in the vehicle, just took off and just started driving, got along the highway, and ended up getting lost. Now, I've been in a vehicle with people who they just got, as they say, turned around. Oh, I'm not lost. I'm just turned around. What does turned around mean? You're lost. And you're lost because you didn't take the time to turn on the GPS. It would have taken 3 minutes to turn on the GPS, plug in the address to find out where you're going. But no, you got in the vehicle, you got on the highway, and you just started driving. And then you're trying to figure it out, and now you're turned around. We make things difficult because we don't want to take the extra time to save ourselves some time. I know people who sometimes put things together, shelves and furniture or appliances or bikes or toys. So they put things together and they don't pull out the instructions. They don't stop to read the instructions, but they just pull they'll just empty the things out on the floor and they'll just start putting stuff together. And when it's all said and done, they have 25 screws and 18 bolts left over. And then things are backwards, things are wobbly, things are unstable. Why? It's because they took a shortcut. They didn't take the time to read the instructions. We sometimes make life difficult. We sometimes make things difficult because we don't want to take the extra time to read the instructions. We don't want to take the time to prepare. Do you all know anybody who's guilty of that? Maybe it's not you. Maybe somebody else is guilty of that. But if we would just take the preparation time, if we would just breathe and exhale for just a moment. Because when we don't, it then leads to frustration. Don't get upset with me because the bicycle fell apart, because the furniture fell apart. Maybe it's not us. Maybe we have people in our lives. We sometimes make things more difficult. I always have more pieces left over there when I start. I mean, don't you all tell them I said this, but I have older brothers who are just like that. Will not read an instruction, as my grandmama would say, to save their lives. Immediately start putting things together. Haven't read instructions the first. And then let me pat myself on the back. And then who do they call when it's unstable? Can you come take a look at this? Well, yeah, here I go again. Yes, I can go take a look at it. Well, clearly you didn't read the instructions because you have 18 bolts and 17 screws left over. What's going on? Got this artificial Christmas tree. Got to put this Christmas tree up. I walk into the house and the Christmas tree is leaning over. What did you do? You didn't read the instructions. Now, this is not my brothers. They're not this bad. But you go in somebody's house and the Christmas tree is just all mixed up because you got the high branches, the big branches up here, and the little branches there. It just looks all a hot mess. We just need to take the time to read the instructions. I'm going to stop. Listen, I'm going to stop harping on that. But we make life more complicated than it has to be. And there are times some people say, well, listen, I guess I just have to learn the hard way. Not all the time. Not all the time. You don't just have to learn the hard way. Sometimes life happens, and yes, there are things that we will do, and we will learn a difficult lesson, and it'll sink in. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be the hard way all the time. Right. It's not what you did, it's what you didn't do. Right. What am I saying? I'm saying that we unknowingly make things more difficult for ourselves sometimes than we need to. And we feel like life is beating us up. No, life is not beating you up. You just didn't read the instructions. Life is not playing fair. Well, it's not life isn't playing fair. You just didn't turn on the GPS before you got in the car, and now you turned around. Sometimes, yes, we do have to work harder than other people given certain situations, particularly if there's something that's new for us. So let's not ignore that idea. Sometimes we do choose things because they're challenging, because we like the way it gets our creative juices flowing, and we like that. But I'm not talking about those things. I'm just talking about when life happens and that there are routine ways of doing things that we could save ourselves some heartache and hardship and anxiety, but we don't do it because we don't stop and breathe before we attempt to do what it is that we need to do. What am I saying? I'm saying learn how to stop and breathe before you attempt to do some of the things that you need to do. Just stop and breathe. Sometimes we're so robotic, we're so automatic, and we're in auto drive, autopilot. Our feet hit the floor and we start functioning without even breathing. Our feet hit the floor and we start moving without even thinking. Give yourself some time, give yourself some space. That's really a part of self-care and self-love. So that way you don't feel exhausted by the have you ever gotten to the end of the day and you're exhausted? And you stop and you realize, why is it that I'm exhausted? Because a lot of times you were rushing and you didn't. Thank you, Tracy. Yes, it's okay to take your time, because a lot of times you're rushing and you did not bother to take your time. You didn't bother to sit back and exhale. You didn't bother to sit back and think about what was going on. You didn't sit back and think, how can you strategize? How can you execute some tactical maneuvers? No, we just jump headfirst right into the thing. But there are some things, if you've never initiated some things before, it's going to take time. It's going to take energy. So it's okay to feel the fatigue of that. But I'm not talking about those things. I'm not talking about doing things that are new. I'm talking about doing things that are routine, that are ordinary. Our feet hit the floor, we just start running. Sometimes, sometimes there are people who offer us their guidance, who offer us their assistance, who offer us their counsel on the best way to do some of the things that we are trying to do, particularly when we don't have any experience in that realm, in that area. But guess what? We sometimes don't take the advice that we've been given. For whatever reason, we don't follow the recommendation, despite the fact that it would help save time. It would help save energy. It might even help save money. How many of us can confess that there are times when we just refuse to take the advice of certain people just because of who they were? Never mind the fact that they had experience in an area, we just didn't take their advice because of who they were. And you end up spending more time, more energy, more money. And then we were exhausted. I just had to take the hard way. Sometimes you just got to learn how to take the hard way. Okay, take the hard way. Sometimes we seem to enjoy taking the hard way. I don't know if it's a matter of pride that prevents us from asking other people to help us, but I'm telling you, there are times when people are there to help us, there, available to assist us. And for whatever reason, call it our ego or our pride, we sometimes, I know I'm being challenging this evening, color, that really doesn't sound very inspirational. It doesn't sound very motivational, but it sounds more challenging. Yes, this is to challenge us to sometimes put pride aside. That is the thing that sometimes prevents us from asking other people for help, because sometimes we feel like, oh, I just need to learn the hard way. I feel better. I don't always feel better if I learn the hard way. I want people in my life who can give me advice, who can give me counsel, who may have had the experience of doing something. We make things sometimes harder than they have to be when our ego becomes invested. And I'm just challenging us. I'm just challenging us this evening. And sometimes we're just so indecisive. We go back and forth, back and forth. We vacillate between left and right, between up and down, between in and out, we round about. We're indecisive. And every time we step to the left and step back to the right, we are taking more energy. We're using more energy. And we still haven't made a decision. Sometimes we just need to execute. It's what some people call that ready, aim, fire mode. You once you prepare yourself and you ready yourself, you've just got to go for it. Sometimes people don't like to admit that their way is not the best way. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Sometimes ego will cause people not to confess that their way is not the best way. But I am so thankful. I hope what I'm about to say is going to help somebody. I am so thankful that I don't have to be the best, the brightest, the smartest. I don't have to be the best at everything that I do. Neither do I want to be. We've talked about the ones, twos, and threes when we categorize the people in our lives. My way doesn't always have to be the best way, and my way isn't always the best way. I am not so disillusioned as to think that my way is the best way of doing anything all the time. Sometimes my way is not the best way of doing anything ever. Your way is not the best way of doing a thing all the time. Appreciate the diversity of the people in your life, the diversity of their gifts, the diversity of their talents, the diversity of their strengths, the diversity of their inputs, the diversity of their expertise, the diversity of doing what they do, how they do it. You know, sometimes we're so excited, we're enthusiastic, we're upbeat, we're optimistic. And that's a good thing. But what happens? It causes us to take on too much at one time. And then there we go again, learning the hard way. I'm just trying to talk to us about learning the hard way and some of the things that we don't have to do. Some of the ways that we can not have to learn the hard way. You know, have you ever been excited and you just feel like you can take on the world? Yep, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the other. You go to a seminar, you go to a workshop, you go to a reunion, you go to a setting where you're energized, and you come back, you feel like you can take on the world. The truth of the matter is, you should not necessarily try to take on the world. Maybe just maybe just one street or one avenue or one block, but don't try to take on the world. Because what happens? You're exhausted, and then you say, "Lord, I had to learn the hard way." Sometimes we are so excited about our success and what our success can lead to, that it's going to lead to worldly acclaim. It's going to lead to fame. It's going to lead to substantial monetary gain. It's going to lead to so many things. And when it doesn't lead to that, immediately we become frustrated, and we'll put that down and we'll pick something else up. Because we've overestimated. We've overestimated the net effect of an idea that we have. Can I tell you, you don't have to take the hard way. You just don't have to take the hard way around. One of the things that might help us, here we go. I don't have long, but here's some of the things that might help us when it comes to not necessarily taking the hard way. If we stop trying to control other people sometimes, Cutler, you're about to lose your audience. That is not what I'm trying to do, really. Because sometimes we find ourselves, we really do try to control people, but if you stop trying to control people, you might find yourself less exhausted. Because if you're always wondering and you're always worried about what someone else is doing, how things are going to turn out, trying to get them to see it your way, trying to get them to do it your way, trying to get them to understand that your way is the better way, and perhaps trying to get them to see that your way is the best way. Stop trying to control other people. You will be a lot less exhausted, and you won't end up making things harder on you. How else can you not make things so hard on you? Learn how to say no. Now that's easy. I know it's easier said than done, but no is a complete thought. So if you say no a lot more than you are saying yes, you will find yourself a lot less exhausted. You won't end up doing things the hard way, because a lot of times we end up doing things the hard way because we have too many doggone things on our plate. And if we use the power of no, then we will not have our plate stacked up with so many things. Some of us don't have room to keep options open because we don't have any options left on our plate. Our hands are full, our feet are full, our shoulders are full, our brains, our minds are full. We don't have room for anything else because we didn't learn how to say no. Learn how to say no, and you'll stop feeling like you're always having to take the hard way of getting things done. Learn how to say no a lot more. And no doesn't have to be delivered in a nasty fashion. No doesn't have to be delivered in a nasty manner. No does not have to be delivered in a nasty environment or setting. Because a lot of times when we end up saying yes to so many things, you end up having to say no to the thing that you really want to do. Now, I hope I'm helping somebody with that statement. We say yes to so many things until we have no other choice but to say no to some of the things that we really want to do. Because my plate is full. And now I'm frustrated because I don't get a chance to do that because I said yes to the other thing. Sometimes you just need to listen to that inner voice. Listen to your intuition. It's telling you, nope, say no. It's telling you this might be harder than you think. This might be a little complicated. This is not in your area of expertise. You might want to get some help. Sometimes if you just listen to the inner voice, listen to your intuition. I'm just trying to help us. I really am this evening. And then let me share this and then I get out of here. Another thing that we can do so that we don't find ourselves frustrated because we feel like I always have to learn the hard way. One of the other things that we can do is just learn how to focus on one thing at a time. Learn how to focus on one thing at a time. It's not cute to have irons in the fire, irons in so many fires all the time. Oh, he has a lot going on. She has a lot going on. Every time I turn around, they're involved in this, they're involved in that, they're involved in the other. I don't know who we're trying to impress by trying to keep so many irons in the fire all the time. He's involved in that. She's involved in that. She's in that organization. He's in that affiliation. He's in that. Listen. Stop burning yourself out unnecessarily. Stop trying to impress people. Stop trying to control people. Learn how to focus on one thing at a time. Listen to your intuition. These are things that I'm suggesting that we do so that we don't have to find ourselves saying, I always have to learn the hard way. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't always have to learn the hard way. Sometimes we end up doing things the hard way because that's what we want to do. That's the choice. That's the option that we exercise. Back to the quote, and I'm going to end with this. These mountains that you are carrying, you were only supposed to climb. And some of the mountains that we're climbing, we were supposed to speak to and tell them to get out of the way. Stop trying to do things or stop doing things the hard way all the time. Who are you trying to impress? I got to go on this one. End up trying to impress people, and then you end up in cardiac arrest. You end up stroked out, end up in a grave when they come to your funeral, look at you and say, "Oh, listen, well, I wonder what happened to them." What happened to them is that they end up trying to impress somebody else who really didn't care. I'm gone. I'm gone. But I'm sharing this, you all, because I want us to love ourselves enough to eliminate some of the unnecessary burdens in our life. Until the next time, please do me a favor. Let's keep building community. Let's maintain connectivity. Stay sane, stay safe, keep your heads up, keep your hopes up, and tell somebody else, come on, let's talk the color. The man is just trying to help save our lives. After all, that's all I'm trying to do. Please know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. I'll see you the next time I see you. Good night.